It's finally over. The Ahsoka series has did all 8 episodes. The last one is a little bit like C.S. Lewis. So what is it? The Jedi, the
The
Witch, and the
Yeah.
Lion,
Warlord?
the
Yes.
No,
Jedi,
Yeah.
no,
the
the
Witch.
Jedi, the Witch, and the
The
Warlord.
Lion, the Witch, and
So
a Wardrobe. Yeah, they played
yeah,
off of
yeah,
that.
the
Yeah.
most obvious like reference of all time. That is the only little side bit I want to give on the title because that was funny. But we're going to talk about that in today's episode. Go over the last and final episode of season 1, maybe season 2. We don't know what's coming up next, but all that and more here on Chatooine. So episode 8, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. What an episode, right? I feel like there's been a lot of mixed reactions online so far, and a little bit of a common consensus of people being like, I wanted a little bit more. And especially looking at our last episode, the way we talked about what we expected from this, I feel a little bit I wouldn't say disappointed, but I can see where a lot of the frustrations come out of this episode. So as per usual, we're going to start off with Lunga. We're going to go round table. Give us your initial reactions to episode 8.
All right. I told you guys last night that I needed to sleep on it. I needed time to digest it. And after sleeping and after digesting, I'm still not sure. I don't hate it. Okay, I don't hate it, but I'm still conflicted on should I be hating it? Did Filoni trick me into liking this or something? I mean, that's what I feel like. Like Filoni tricked me into liking this, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I had to get in an argument with a friend. He used to be a friend. Apparently, I'm not a friend anymore. On Twitter because they're like, it's not a cliffhanger. Cliffhangers. I go, listen. Subjectively, you cannot like it, or you don't think the cliffhanger is suspenseful enough for you. But that was a definition of a cliffhanger, and I kind of like where they're going with it. I'm disappointed with some stuff. Maybe they could have did a little more with some things. I think they spent too much time on some things and not enough times on others. But I guess I could just say I don't hate it. I'm. It could have been better, so I'm a little disappointed as far as the finale. I think it could have been better as a finale, but I don't think it was like, table flipping. Fuck this show.
All right. I had a similar thought at first. So I watched the episode and I kind of had this feeling, right, where I saw the episode and if I were to just like read a synopsis of it, nothing really bothered me, but something like emotionally just didn't feel right. And then I rewatched the episode and I enjoyed it a lot more. And I think the stem a lot of my issues has to do with the resolution of the season and how it's like kind of a conclusion to the season, but not really. And I think they could have gone down a much better route, and we'll get into those thoughts.
Yeah, the doors were definitely left open. One of the biggest talking points of one of our previous episodes were about Baylan and Shin, and if this idea of power that's been built up throughout literally the entire 8 episodes was going to have a resolution to it, and the answer is no. Me personally, I really did love this episode. My biggest issue with it, honestly, is the choreography. I think besides the Morgan Elsbeth and Ahsoka fight, which was damn good, that looked amazing. A lot of the choreography when the stormtroopers or the night troopers come in was sluggish. It didn't work for me personally. It kind of took me out of the scene. But I will say I love this as a finale. The ending with Ray, not Ray Steven, well Ray Stevenson, Baylan on
He has
the
to bring up
cliff.
Ray anytime he can, of course.
I know. It's just embedded in my mind. It's part of it. All right. He's literally on a cliffhanger. Once again, it's Force Awakens. It's literally a cliffhanger, right? So are they going to recast him and do this in season 2 or maybe get his own spinoff show? Or are they going to stop this and turn it into a book? I really hope they don't settle for a book because whatever it is he's searching for, it's something powerful. Ezra rebuilding that saber. I think this is the first time in live action we've seen a character on screen building a lightsaber, is it? I'm pretty sure this is the first time in live action.
I mean,
besides
do you
the
really
deleted
call
scene
that
with-
scene him building a lightsaber? He was
yeah,
like,
I want to get to that later.
he was like
That was
taking
pretty
things and going like this.
anticlimactic.
That's all he did.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was really
yeah.
corny.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh,
we
wow.
got
Anyways,
pussy.
anyways, I love this episode though. My biggest issue still is the choreography. Shin, I think we got some interesting doors open with her, trying to get that battalion to come with her. I'm assuming she's going to go raid Ahsoka, and I have a feeling that's where season 2, which is definitely going to happen. I have a feeling season 2 is going to open up with that scene.
I'm so taken aback, I guess, of the kind of differing opinions that we all have of like what we like and dislike. The choreography really didn't bother me that much in this episode. I really liked a lot of what this episode was doing in terms of the here and now of Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra need to get on Thrawn's ship. But I feel like the writing in this episode was so inconsistent. Like you guys were saying, there isn't a lot of resolution at the end for this series, or for this season at least. Thrawn is pretty stupid in this episode. There's a lot of things that he does that I'm like, okay, this is a little odd to me. I don't like Shin going with the bandits. They were the least interesting part of the entire series. We only see the most interesting villains throughout the entire season have been Shin and Baylan. We get no answers with them at all. It really is just a unsatisfying conclusion to a lot of these storylines, and it felt rushed almost. I mean, this last 10 minutes of this episode were literally like 5 different endings from all these different characters, and it just felt anticlimactic. Like, oh, I don't really know what to expect going forward, because of course, you know, Ray Stevenson has died and everything, but Baylan is the most interesting character in the series now, and I have no idea. We don't even have a remote hint. We have some context to what this is going to be, but we don't really have any actual answers that we've been seeking for the entire season. It's beautiful. I think Rick Famuyiwa did a great job directing it, but I think the writing and what Dave was going for, like Lunga was talking about earlier, of leaving it on the cliffhanger. There's a difference between like a good cliffhanger that makes me go, I can't wait to see what happens next, and then cliffhangers like this where it's like, no, you were talking about this entire season and you still haven't answered that, and that's where I get a little bit of annoyed. So I don't know. I'm not with Lunga where like I kind of like it. I kind of don't. I like how it was done. I don't like almost all the decisions that were made in the episode. I thought they were very annoying. And go ahead.
No, you can finish your thought.
No, that was pretty much it. I just don't like the execution of a lot of these decisions.
I think, well, you're saying conclusion of these storylines, and that's the key thing. It's not a conclusion, and you can obviously see that they were planning on keeping Ray Stevenson, and
yes,
and I think they saw no way. They're probably going to recast that. That's the only thing I can think of, because this is apparently an important storyline, and it's not something that they're just gonna just throw away. And the way you're presenting it, that the conclusion of these storylines, that's just it. It's not. That's why it's a cliff. Now, subjectively, I can understand what you're saying. I said probably I could have liked to maybe seen just a little bit more than literally, what was it, 30 seconds at the end of the episode. Yeah. You know, you could have gave me 2 minutes maybe, at least. But so there could have been more. But this is setting up something big, and it's literally the hook to say, hey, watch season 2, watch these movies. These are going to be big stuff happening here. And that is a cliffhanger. So I don't agree with this saying that they didn't. That's why I'm saying I didn't hate it. And what those cliffhangers are pretending, it could be pretty big. So I don't necessarily see it that way. I'm still confused about the Shin thing, because we had a whole argument about Shin and Baylan and her going off in one empire,
and
now
nothing came of it.
That part didn't make sense to me. It's like, so okay, so you decide not to go with Thrawn, not with the Empire, but to not be with Baylan either, but to suddenly just lead some bandits. I don't understand that part.
Let's go through the episode chronologically, so we can begin with.
What do you guys want to start off? I think we should start off with kind of Ezra, because his was kind of the most grounded story and had a good amount of if we have resolution, his had the most resolution. His story arc. We were talking earlier about his lightsaber building thing. That was a unique scene. I did enjoy it. I like the little homage to Kanan, and not in the sense of, I brought his name up.
You didn't remember him?
Good. No, I did remember him. I remember Kanan. I remember Rebels really well. But no, I
Kanan,
like
Caleb,
that he did-
Anakin, Kanan, Caleb, Anakin, Kanan, Caleb, Anakin. How many times did they say those
crosses her
names?
arms. No, it was a cool scene. I didn't really enjoy the aspect of, normally when we see or talk about lightsaber building in Star Wars, it's supposed to be like ritual-like, and it's supposed to be very impactful and meaningful. This was just done in a very kind of fast way, and it just.
Well, they were short on
do anything
time.
for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a problem with that. But I get it. It's the first time I've seen this. Maybe it could have been a little bit more cinematic, I guess. But
yeah,
I
the
thought that was
best
fine.
part of the scene was him talking about Ahsoka and Sabine to Huyang, but that's a completely separate topic into those two characters. What's to say? If we're lucky, the cliffhanger will force Disney to give them more time to properly give it the service needs. Hopefully, not bogged down by cutting for season format. I don't know what they're going to do
with that. Anyway,
yeah.
With
With Ezra, go ahead.
I want to touch on the scene because there was one thing I really liked, and it was the exposition about Sabine and Ahsoka's backstory. I just am frustrated. They explained it in the last episode of the season where they said, so we knew previously that Sabine's whole family died. And Huyang explains to us that a big reason Ahsoka was hesitant to train Sabine before was because that she was becoming a Jedi for the wrong reasons. And she feared that Sabine would potentially turn dark because she wanted to become a Jedi to avenge her family. I think it's a fantastic reason. That's not really explained earlier in the show. I think that would have been far better to establish in like the first 2 episodes. And Lunga's muted.
Yeah, I was just saying they did an info dump.
Yeah, and so it's like this is so conceptually I really like the idea, but it would have been so much better to establish that earlier on in the story. So it's one of those things I'm conflicted on. It's like great,
well, and that's one of the bigger problems that I have with the episode is that, like you're saying, the info dump, Lunga. With Ezra specifically, that's kind of what we get with a lot of these questions that we had of, what did happen with Ahsoka and Sabine as a master and apprentice? What did happen with Thrawn and Ezra when they arrived here? It's all just kind of throwaway lines. Ezra's like, oh yeah, Thrawn found this place. He woke up the mothers and rebuilt his destroyer. I didn't really feel like it was safe. It's like, well, how the fuck did you get off the ship? What else happened during this time? It's such a throwaway line.
Same way he got back to the Empire, to the galaxy. He dressed up as a stormtrooper.
That was obvious. But I mean, at least that we got some information.
But even that, like that's where I'm saying, like this show, in terms of writing, it makes Thrawn look kind of stupid. It's like he doesn't have cameras in his hangars to know that 2 of his guys just got killed. Someone stole a ship and is just off on the night. And he was the entire. Well,
that's why they didn't show it. So there's no questions being asked. They kept that secret.
Yeah, but that's still stupid.
It almost feels like
it absolutely is stupid.
But like even Thrawn at the beginning was like, we can't lose a lot of people. We've had a lot of casualties. We got to be smart about our resources. And then he's like, these volunteers want to go die. Fuck them. Have fun. As long as they can be reincarnated as, Dathomir motherfuckers. Like,
yeah, but that was important because that was his last. This is what we need to get off. This is the last thing we need to do to get out of this galaxy. He doesn't care once he's out of the galaxy.
But even then, the concept and the plot of them going to Thrawn's ship, I do not understand. At the very first scene of the episode, Thrawn is like, the cargo is loaded. And instead of moving the ship out of the atmosphere, a couple thousand miles up in the air, maybe a little to the left, a little to the right, they stay in the same spot the entire episode and have to like fight off Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra showing up instead of just moving the ship so they can't jump on it. They already took out the spaceship. There's a lot of things like that in this episode.
There's a lot of plot convenience.
Yes, it really
convenience, but we don't know how damaged the ship was because if you notice, it was just in the atmosphere, just like
okay, but Lunga, they have this amazing, they have this amazing technologically achieving stuff in Star Wars called ship tracking. Thrawn can see Baylan's ass cheeks from his little field view thing, and he can't see that Huyang is showing up on the ship to save Sabine and Ahsoka. He sends out 2 TIE fighters to take out the ship, right? It works. And he goes like, we must assume that it's down and everything. And let's just say we lost the 2 TIE fighters. They're not going to be able to do much. They don't have a ship. How about this? How about you send another TIE fighter and they just kill everybody? Then you don't have to worry about it. Like there's so many things like Goldman's saying that's plot convenience.
That's Star Wars starting from the New Hope until now.
This level.
Convenience in Star Wars has always been there.
There's a suspension of disbelief in some of the stuff where you look at it and you go, okay, this is ridiculous. Okay.
What I would argue is in isolation, a lot of these moments are typical Star Wars, but I just felt like it was consistently present throughout this episode, like scene after scene after scene. It was just a moment like, oh, wow, that was very convenient for our heroes. Like, ooh, an orbital bombardment right on top of them. Oh, lucky
And
number
Han
one.
just showed
Ride
up
right past
right
it.
at the nick of time when Han showed
No
up. You know,
one
come
gets
on, it's
I mean, again, Lunga,
No,
in
it's
isolation, it's not
vastly
bad. It's just there were so many instances of it where
no.
after a while,
I get it. Yeah,
after a
My-
while,
my-
it's like, okay.
My favorite thing, and this is not a complaint or anything, but I love how in Star Wars, in order to close the door, all the heroes have to do is slash the door panel, and then it just slams shut. I'm like,
yeah.
what?
Especially
But all
It's
right.
like cutting the rope in the old.
I mean, kind of in a way.
Yeah.
Sure.
The fact that this
Sure.
temple even has like door controls like that, when they say this was made before time was even invented, I'm like,
Okay,
obviously
no,
upgraded
because
and all that stuff.
technology in Star Wars has stayed pretty much the same for 10,000 years from
Since
what
the
we know.
dawn
Let's
before
get,
time.
let's get back to Ezra because we kind of went way off against
Yes.
the Thrawn.
I know,
We're
I
still
know.
talking about Ezra.
Well,
Yeah.
that whole scene, because especially the scene like right after where Sabine and Ahsoka are talking on the top of a ship, I thought that was a really well done scene that kind of highlighted the point of this show. I get really frustrated when people say the show had no like story; it was just plot. When a big focus of it was Ahsoka learning how to become a proper Jedi Master. Are people still on the train that she's not a Jedi? I don't know.
Yeah, she says she's
But
not
anyway,
a Jedi, so she's not a Jedi.
she's a master of some kind then. But her conversation with Sabine frustrated me a little bit at first, because as I've said before, I really think Sabine needs to face the consequences of her galactic changing decision, and Ahsoka kind of just forgives her. I can buy the reason with Ahsoka trying to be more forgiving and being more understanding of the apprentice of her apprentice, but I just really hope later on that plot point is not dropped, that Sabine
Yeah.
started this war.
The consequence though is Sabine and Ahsoka is now stranded on Peridia. I mean,
Yes.
that's a pretty big consequence.
That was another annoying thing is like they talk at the end and Sabine's like, I'm sorry about all this. And Ahsoka's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. You got
Okay,
Ezra
Ahsoka
home and
learned that
everything.
it's just part of the path, though. Ahsoka accepts that this is just part of our path.
So Sabine fucking up and now causing the death of countless people.
Okay,
in the galaxy, Thrawn's biggest threat to the entire world is all on Sabine. This is all her fault. That's where this stuff gets a little annoying and frustrating. It's like, oh, it's okay to fail. It's like, yeah, sure, I guess, in homework, but not when it costs people their lives.
Well, she's really sensitive, all right? And Ahsoka doesn't want to piss her off,
stay back
right?
with the beginning, but
Okay.
that was one thing.
So Ezra.
So
what do
you guys think about Ezra escaping?
I wanted to say that his reunion with Hera was interesting. I agree it was way too short and that this episode felt rushed. But I thought that scene was nice. Him coming in the Night Trooper outfit was that was something. I was kind of thinking, honestly, they were just going to start blasting, considering what happened to some New Republic ships at the beginning of the episode. But I do like the mirror between the two.
Okay, once he leaves Thrawn's ship and he's landing on a New Republic ship, did he have to come out with the helmet on? Was that
That's
necessary?
what I'm saying.
That is so stupid. Like,
That's
just take off the
something I
helmet.
didn't care about. Like, they wanted some dramatic reveal. Okay, I don't know.
It would have been perfectly fine if he just
they
walked
might
out without the
shoot
helmet
me,
on and then
so
Hera
let me
saw
just,
him. I mean, what's
He
the
knew they weren't going
difference?
to shoot him. The Force is his ally. He was going to be okay. But I will say,
That's what I want to go on about.
I thought this was going to be interesting. This is another one of those. I am happy that Ezra got home. Good. That was almost the entire point of the entire season. But I thought it was such an interesting way to go that he gets trapped on Thrawn's ship again. Like, how fucking funny is that? That he sacrifices himself to save the galaxy to get Thrawn out to this other place, and then the only way he gets back is through Thrawn's ship again. But this time he's like a prisoner and everything. Like, it's the same situation. I thought that would have been hysterical, but no, he just escapes. Thrawn doesn't notice that a ship is leaving his ship. Like, it's stuff like that where I'm like, are you? It rushes to it.
I don't care about that. Like, of all the sure was another plot convenience, but that's like on the bottom of my totem pole of things that I had an issue with.
It's thinking, I think it's going way too deep on stuff, only because the fact that listen, I know we say, oh, don't they have security cameras on it? Listen, we have never in the history of fuck them on in Star Wars stuff seen Star Destroyers have security cameras, because every time they're always infiltrating Star, they're just running around these whole fucking things left to right. No one knows where the fuck they're at. It's a huge ship. They're gigantic. Okay. They don't know this shit. They don't have sensors on board because they figure everyone on board is supposed to.
If Gideon's resurgent class had one.
They can see people leaving the ship, though. They can see a ship leaving. It's like the first scene in Star Wars.
Well, the ship has.
Hey,
a
hold on.
signature
I got an
trail.
idea.
That's-
What if they had trackers on that ship? Thrawn knew that Ezra was going to leave, and he's like, "Let him go to
That's
the New
possible.
Republic." Now we know where they're at.
But as far as Ezra goes, I want to give my thoughts about it. The lightsaber building would have been cool if we didn't have that whole argument last episode about how why do you leave the damn lightsaber? Oh, the Force is my ally. I don't need a lightsaber.
Let me answer
build one now.
Let me answer Lunga real quick, okay?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Sabine needed to have
hold
that.
on,
It
Lunga.
is deeper than that, Lunga.
I've got an
Sabine needed
answer.
to have that lightsaber.
Listen, he said that when Shin comes up with one other person, right? He leaves that lightsaber to Sabine when that is taking place. That took place before he knew a whole battalion of stormtroopers were on their way. Not to mention, the point still stands. He knows Sabine has been training with that lightsaber, and so he needs her to. He wanted her to have it because of that.
And I would say that there's a good argument to be made that he doesn't know how well her skills are, and there's a good chance he might be better with it than she is.
All he knows is, oh, you've been training with Ahsoka? Oh, good for you. He doesn't know how long or how well she's doing, but that's last week's conversation.
It just feels like an excuse for why he didn't take the lightsaber. It literally it's not a story reason. It was just an excuse on why. Oh well,
if there was two
lightsaber back.
If there were two lightsabers and say Sabine had Kanan's lightsaber for some reason and she's like, here you go, I've got mine, and he still didn't take it, okay, I would see your point a little bit more, but because there was only one, I don't agree with that.
It's silly, but it was all right. It was no problem. People were bitching about how how do you have all these, kyber crystals when the Empire was like stealing them all? I go, those were Hugh Yang's from his workshop, like pre-order 66. Let's not get
this is
dumb here.
Ahsoka's ship. I mean, I'm sure she collected some crystals and stuff.
All the stuff in there was Hugh Yang's work. He brought a bunch of stuff from his workshop.
I do like the comedy relief in that scene too. When Ezra's just throwing all of his toolboxes around, and Yang's like, I keep this place organized.
And
yeah, that was nice.
I do like that he got back. I think it was a little janky with some of the stuff like that we mentioned, the stormtrooper being on and everything. A little janky in how he got there, but overall, I was okay with that. I understand the significance of that in the story. We did kind of discuss about how maybe they're going to split, some get back, some don't, which is what happened.
Yep.
No, I was wrong.
Sure,
I was totally wrong on that. I said I couldn't picture a way where only one or two of them would get back and the others would stay, but I was wrong.
So I didn't have much complaints with all these little nitpicky things like the lightsabers. I was okay with him.
Sorry. Did the reunion with him and Hera feel anticlimactic? Because that's
it was too short. He came and gone like that.
Any less anticlimactic than him and Sabine? Hey, just leaning up
against because they hugged.
At least him and Sabine had like a conversation to it.
Yeah, there was something there.
Hera and him, they just look at each other from across the ship, and it's one of those things where it's like he's like, oh, I'm home. Like, you're in the middle of space, bro. You're not even on Lothal.
I think that's
supposed to be a pickup for the next one. That's going to continue on next season.
No, for sure, you're right.
I think the point that they were trying to convey, or Dave or whoever was trying to convey, that I don't think got conveyed, was the sense of horror in Hera realizing that if Ezra's back, Thrawn is too. That's at least the vibe I think they were going for.
That's not bad.
You could still be excited to see Ezra and then still express the Thrawn's back.
But that's another big problem I think with this episode is that the entire series, even Mandalorian season 3, we're building up this premise of Thrawn's return, and he finally makes the return to the galaxy at the end of the season, like we all know he would, and there's no reaction to it. The New Republic doesn't seem to know. There's no Imperial Armada waiting for him. Like, it's just
he went to Dathomir. He went to Dathomir.
Yeah, I know he did. I know he did. It doesn't mean anything, though. I mean,
they don't know where he's going to show up. Where are they going to go? It's not just a doorway. Let's the hot gates of 300. But stop here. Stop and prevent the galaxy.
You're telling me the entire series that this is he's returning and it's a big deal, and then he returns and nothing happens. He goes to Dathomir. It's yet again more unanswered questions of the entire time we're asking what is these?
It's a cliffhanger.
Hang on. No. It's
my bad. I apologize.
It is literally just setting up more questions and not giving us really any good context. Oh, he brings the cargo from this planet with the Great Mothers to this one, and at the end of it, though, there's still no hint of what his actual plan is, what the Great Mothers want, what the cargo is, what they're doing on Dathomir. There's nothing to give us any more. It's just find out next season.
I have my theory on that.
Wait, that's all we have is
theory
theories, though.
and yeah, but I mean, it's not more questions. It's continuing the same question. So it's not really more questions. It's
Yeah, but that gets
continuing
old
the
after
same
after
question.
8 episodes, and I'm asking the same
Yeah.
damn question every episode. Like at some point, you got to
Because
answer
the story
questions
wasn't
you-
that. The
I
story
disagree.
wasn't
When it
that.
came to the
The-
villains, though, that was their
the-
whole story.
The opening crawl of this show said that there are agents out there trying to bring Thrawn back to the galaxy. That's like the
Yeah,
first paragraph
And
of
they
the show.
showed that.
But I think that there should have just been more of a payoff. It didn't need to be bad or anything, but just something that shows us that since Thrawn is back, shit is real. Like, this is serious business. Like, there was a lot of speculation that a whole fleet would show up around Thrawn to show that this is a serious threat.
No.
That I
How are they
would've
going to know
liked.
where? But how? No, but let's be realistic here. How are they going to know where he's going to pop into the galaxy? They don't know where he's
you
going
can
to come
tell
in.
It
them.
doesn't matter where he pops up. It's the fact that he is back, and he could send out, Palpatine returns, and he sends out an entire voice message of, "Oh, the dead are back," and all that shit. The New Republic
Maybe it's because
return the whole
I
time.
predicted this. I said this episode was going to end with him showing up the galaxy, and then like, now my plans can begin, which is exactly what happened.
Okay,
He showed up in the
and
galaxy.
yes,
his plans
that's-
begin, which involves Dathomir.
That's the
Makes
equivalent
sense
of
to
them
me.
finding him. That's the equivalent of them finding him and him being like, "Oh, was once a dream is now a frightening reality for our enemies." It's kind of the same thing of, we knew he was going to get back to the galaxy, but we don't see the fear in the New Republic. We don't see anyone react to it. It would have had a more payoff and build up more suspense for season 2 if it's like Empire Strikes Back, where it ends and you've seen, a Cloud City fall to the Empire, and people are worried about what's going to come next. We don't have any of that here. It's just, oh, he's back, and like maybe 2 people know. One person knows about it. Ezra. He's the only one who knows about it.
Yeah, well, that's
Listen, you're
another
the
thing I want
only
to bring
one
up.
here that has read all the books like me. You know that's not how he operates. Come
No,
on.
that's true. That's true. Him being secretly returning, that is a benefit to him and the Empire. However, even if the New Republic, let's say we don't show the New Republic reacting to it, Hera, first of all, already knows about it. So that's where it gets annoying of, she knows about it and Ezra knows about it. They need to have an actual reaction.
If they
to
tell
it.
the New Republic, what are they going to ask? Okay, what's your evidence?
Yeah.
Ezra
I mean-
literally just went to the galaxy. He could give them years worth of storytelling. And then if they do that, I'm sorry, this is the dumbest show ever, because incompetence is not good writing. All right. That gets old after a while of, oh, I need evidence. Oh, I don't believe you, until the barrel is in your face. That's not interesting at all. And it makes your heroes someone you can't root for.
No, I agree with you that we should have had resolution to, okay, he's back, and then the fear of the New Republic's face shows up. And then we go to Peridia with Ahsoka and them.
Yeah, the only 2 people are really reacting to his return, when this is supposed to be a huge, impactful thing for the entire galaxy. It feels very contained if we see Hera and Ezra go, "Oh shit, Thrawn's back."
I like to think, the way I feel is like if The Force Awakens ended without showing Luke. Like, Rey arrives on the island, she
Yeah.
walks up, and then it cuts to black. It's like, just seeing Luke for 30 seconds is enough of emotional payoff for that movie for us to leave satisfied. Sequel discussion aside. With this, I just would have liked to seen just like a shot of the Empire amassing. Just not even, it doesn't have to be the whole fleet, just a few ships. Like the council that we saw in Mandalorian season 3. Like, if they're talking, then Thrawn walks in, he's like, "I'm back."
Well, a perfect
I like that. I like
perfect
that.
example, the end of
More
Attack of the
Thrawn.
Clones. I mean, the end of Attack of the Clones is showing that war come together, and then it switches over to Palpatine and
Yes.
Dooku talking.
That's a great
That
point.
was perfect. I think if they could have kind of been inspired by that, I think that would have been brilliant. So, yeah, I agree.
In a good light. Good job.
Attack of the Clones is a good movie, and I will stand by that statement. I don't care.
All right, but anyway, I think we've
Gonna
discussed
send me into
the-
Which is why you're so excited about the final scene of the show.
Oh,
Anakin is awesome.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there later.
Don't
All
even
right,
get me
so
started.
we spoke about Ezra's return and I guess Thrawn's return, but I think we're skipping a big portion of the episode here, which is just the whole, I guess, main conflict with Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine fighting the zombies. Sabine using the Force. What did you guys think about all of that?
Again, I say the choreography wasn't the best in many places. However, the fight with Morgan Elsbeth was badass. That one was very well choreographed. I would argue that that's the best lightsaber duel, quote unquote, in the show. It looked amazing. Ahsoka was doing flips around. She was doing all sorts of twirls and spins like she does in the animated shows. The zombies part of it, we heard rumors that they were going to be zombies. I thought the way it was executed was well. It was just through Night Sister magic after they are killed. My biggest issue is, not to sound edgy, but their lightsaber should have just chopped those things in half. I'm so tired. This happened in Obi-Wan, where like a lightsaber basically goes through someone and they just kind of get a little scratch mark on their chest and fall over. Why didn't they just start chopping off the zombies' heads? Why did they keep using their blasters? Like, what?
They don't know what zombie here. This is not.
Cut them in half. What are they going to do? What are they going to do?
It's not
run
like
on their legs
here where everyone knows of a zombie apocalypse, what you're supposed to do. They don't.
Yeah.
This is something new.
There's
This
no
is
zombie
something new
war
to
in the
them.
Star Wars universe.
Yeah, this is something new to them. They didn't understand what was happening. They were just freaking out, kind of.
Well, you see their shock, and I appreciated that, but at the same time, I'm just like, these aren't idiots. All right, they're shooting these zombies 50 times, and they're still walking towards them. Might want to try something else.
Close the door.
Oh yeah, slash the door panel. There you go. We're good. We're safe.
Okay. Close the door. They can't get through. There you go. I mean, that worked.
I liked it. I didn't like it, but that part was an issue for me.
I didn't think it was that bad. It was weird because like you're kind of being accurate and saying like it's kind of like the lowest part of I think the entire episode, but to me it was like the best and most consistent because I did feel tension the entire episode with them fighting it out, being like, okay, are they actually going to make it to the ship or not? Like, what's going to happen here at the end? I think it did a very good job with that. I just think with all the storylines that they had to wrap up and then didn't wrap up, it kind of clouds this entire sequence, which really was most of the show.
I think that like my theory and hope would have happened that they were actually mostly zombies. I thought it would have been played better if that's how it was.
Yeah,
that there already were zombies. You know what I mean? And that in most of this force were zombies, and Ezra killed a bunch of them, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? I think that would have made more sense than just like this little, oh look, they're zombie, they're bringing them back, which was just kind of a nod to what they've done in the animated shows. Oh, bring something back. So I think it kind of lost something with that. The Elsbeth fight, I agree, was great. I mean, this is Diana Lee and Inosanto. How do you say your name? Inosanto?
Not a clue.
Yeah, Inosanto, I think is her name. Well, she's a martial artist and she was a student of Bruce Lee. I mean, so the fight was great, and I did enjoy that. I like the whole sort of Talzin deal. I thought that was pretty cool.
I did kind of want to get into that because compared to the rest of the season, this episode, I feel like the past 3 or 4 episodes, Morgan hasn't really been a highlight. This episode, though, she was a really big part of it. And I really do think that it was a good idea to kill her off because, the show was getting a little crowded with a lot of the characters and the storylines we were following. But this didn't feel like a rushed way to kill her off. I feel like at the beginning when they were giving her the sword of Talzin in that promotion, it did kind of feel like they were setting her up for failure. And it felt like at the end when Thrawn is like, hey, we need more time. For some reason, I got the vibe. It was kind of like this unspoken word he was saying to her of like, I'm blaming you for this, that, you're the reason Sabine and Ahsoka are here and everything. So yeah, we need more time and you're going to go do it. Like he was sending her to her death and he knew that. And she knew that. And then she says for Dathomir and everything, but she whispers it so no one can hear it and everything. So this episode added a lot more to her character, in my opinion, slightly. And it was kind of crazy because at the beginning of the season, she was the big villain because she's the one going to find Thrawn. She was in a lot of control. And then by the end of the season, she's not in control at all.
And we got to remember that this is actually part 2 of their fight because they already fought in
Mando season 2.
Yeah, Mando season 2. I was trying to remember which season it was, season 2. Yeah, so so this was a continuation of that, which was that was one of my favorite episodes of season 2. And I thought that fight between them was spectacular, the way they did that whole, samurai kind of showdown, the way they had fighting, and this was just a continuation of that. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. Star Wars only 2. They made her character much more deeper, and her motivations was Thrawn, and she was loyal. But we also now with that last line that for Dathomir, and what we see at the end, that she had another motive, and Thrawn, in a way, was also part of that. It wasn't just her loyalty to Thrawn. There was some other motive for her, which we're going to find out later.
Yeah, similar thoughts on the whole Morgan sequence. I thought it was really well done. They held this one shot of Ahsoka and Morgan fighting for like 8 to 10 seconds. In a duel, that's a long shot. And so I thought it was not only well choreographed, but I thought it was well filmed as well, which is an underrated part of these lightsaber duels. I don't want to be that guy who always just brings up little issues, but we're all doing that, so why not? it happens so many times in Star Wars and twice in this episode where when two people are dueling, there's unspoken rule that you just don't interfere. So like Ahsoka's about to fight Baylan, or Ahsoka's about to fight Morgan, and then Ezra and Sabine just like walk around and leave. Like Sabine could have easily just shot Morgan in the head when she wasn't looking, and they could have moved on. So it's like
now you're doing the whole Austin Powers. I can just shoot him dead. No,
yeah.
Laser beams on their freaking head.
Or like Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra, 3 of them could have easily taken out Morgan if they all fought her. So
well,
it's
what
like,
about the stormtroopers that were behind Ahsoka?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
But they didn't have time.
At first, when they arrive, they start shooting Ahsoka when she's like backpedaling. When she's actually dueling Morgan on the top, the stormtroopers stop shooting. And Sabine shows up and they start shooting again. It's like, okay, we get it. This honor, you don't interfere with the duel. But it's like, you could shoot Ahsoka and your problem solved. Like, you're zombies.
If these stormtroopers are if they're all zombies, I would assume all of those were, then they are connected to the Night Sisters. And so my headcanon is, Morgan was basically like, no, this is my
telepathic order.
I'm gonna win this on my own.
I know. It bothers me. It reminds me of in Revenge of the Sith, like when Obi-Wan humps down to fight. All the droids could have shot Obi-Wan right there, but no, honor in the duel. So yeah, again, this is this is something more of a critique of Star Wars because it's done this so many times, but it happened twice in this episode, and that just was like.
Well, can we mention in Return of the Jedi when they caught them trying to break into the bunker? Why did you just kill them? Why did they put your hands up?
It's plot more plot convenient, guys.
Yeah,
it's plot armor that's been all throughout Star Wars, but we just
I mean, in most action movies, it's how it is. But
it's not plot armor though. It's what the Force wills. Okay,
the Palpatine. Your friends are going to die. Could he just said, "I killed your friends"? I mean, it's just
I really liked Morgan in this season. I'm on kind of the other hand. I don't necessarily think she needed to die or should have died. I think it would have been interesting if she did escape and go with Thrawn. I really like her character, and it's because they kind of built it up to where she's now actually one of the Night Sisters. And then for her to get killed, yes, the battle was great. Yes, it's the second battle with Ahsoka, so I'm fine with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not upset she died, but I would have preferred if I had the choice to keep her alive and she goes with Thrawn to Dathomir. I would have liked some more expansion with her on that. But I thought her character was fine in this season. She's definitely better than, in The Mandalorian season 2. And that's only because we didn't know anything about her or had time to understand who she was and what, her goals were. I mean, you guys kind of said it all. Rick Famuyiwa did a phenomenal job with this season. I was going through getting screen caps, and especially in that duel, the cinematography and the choreography was fantastically executed, and I really enjoyed it.
Do you guys think when they made season 2, they knew they were going to do this with her character? That they were going to make her a Night Sister? I have a feeling that they're just hey.
When they made Mando season 2?
Yeah.
I feel like not. Because I never
know she was a part of.
No, there was no hint.
No, she was just one of Thrawn's subordinates.
She's trying to find Thrawn. I mean, that's all.
They referred to like when Ahsoka was talking to Morgan in season 2. Ahsoka's like, "Tell me where your master is," and that's a really peculiar term to use. I'm not sure if the Night Sisters look at Thrawn as a master. So I feel like there was a little bit of direction change there, but. I don't think there's like any big inconsistencies there. I think it's something we could just look back and say, yeah, that probably wasn't planned. But
it was more them both. They both had something to gain from getting Thrawn. So I mean, but yeah, I mean that's whatever.
Even if they didn't plan out like Morgan's arc for Mando season 2 all the way to the end of Ahsoka, the way they did write it and go with it was very well executed. A lot better than I ever thought they could do with her character.
Yeah, I kind of felt
that was a surprise for me because I thought it was going to be more focusing on Baylan and Shin, and Morgan was just going to be the lackey once they got there. But no, they really expanded on her character.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's. I was going to say.
Do you have anything else to say? Yeah, okay.
Not for Morgan. I think there's a couple more topics we could get to before.
There's plenty of
more. I think but I think like the big ones are of course Baylan, Shin, and then we got the Anakin Force Ghost and everything.
Well,
is there anything you guys want to? Yeah, I was about to say, is there anything you guys want to say about Sabine? Because this episode, she didn't seem that she was in like the limelight the entire time, like she did most of this series, in my opinion. This one, she had her moments, she uses the Force and everything, and she makes a lot of critical decisions. And I feel like there was a little bit of an arc to her in this episode, specifically apologizing to Ahsoka. But yet again, there kind of comes some of these unanswered questions that we've had of like, Ezra explaining to Ahsoka and Sabine how he got there and everything. Sabine telling Ezra how she got there. I don't think we had any of that at all. A lot of those questions were just kind of like not even questions, but just resolution to those character moments. I feel like we didn't get that, but
we know why though, right?
Why?
We know why, because when they're doing these kind of stories, there's plot driven stories and there's character driven stories, and they did this as a character driven story, and so the plot is just there as scenery mostly for a lot of things. And people who really enjoy plot stories, which is what we're kind of used to with a lot of Star Wars stuff, we're not used to a lot of character driven stories. There's character development, but there's not always a lot of character driven stories. We're used to plot, the big background, the threat, all the stuff that's going on. That's what we're used to with Star Wars. So to have a story that's more character driven rather than plot driven makes it a little stumbly sometimes, especially if you're setting up big plot points while you're trying to make it a character.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You have these character driven stories, but going on, the entire thing that's driving the characters is giant plot points, right? And so it can get a little messy, especially for an only 8 episode season. And that's we'll get to that question later. But Sabine Goldman, do you want to go?
Yeah, so I don't know. Sabine using the Force is one of those things I'm just apathetic towards. I didn't need it in this series. The way it was executed didn't bother me. I mean, she spent the whole season trying to use the Force. I always find it funny that the scenes where a character can finally use a power is like where the stakes are really the highest, when realistically, I just don't think that's how it would work. But that's not really a complaint. So Sabine uses the Force to grab the lightsaber and killed the zombie death troopers, which is a little redundant, but
the death trooper.
Yeah, the death troopers. So that was cool. And then she force pushed Ezra. I could have gone without. It's like she did one force pull, and now she's like, "Oh, I got this. I'm super confident." What was it? I'm not gonna scream Mary Sue or anything because that's not what I do. But
and Ezra's like, "You sure? Trust my life, you know."
And oh my God! I'm not the person to talk about people escalating too much in the Force. So it didn't bother me.
I will say though, I don't think I would ever complain about Dave Filoni again if Ezra had jumped and she tried to force push him and nothing happened. Ezra just fell and died.
Actually, you know what would have been good? And this humor would have worked if she did it and did it too hard. And he slammed into the side of the Star Destroyer and bounced in.
Oh, it'd be like Spider-Man when he finally gets his web powers and then he slams into the building.
Yes.
I have a thought that something they could have done, or Ezra could have done, as Thrawn's ship is leaving, because it's I love how it's leaving really slowly, so the characters have time to push Ezra there. But it's I felt like he could have grabbed one of the the transport ships on Thrawn's ship, went to get.
That's what I was thinking he was going to do.
Go back up, but again, it's how's Ahsoka going to hide? She can't put on a stormtrooper helmet. But it's just another one of those thoughts I had. But then it's
once just move the ship a little bit.
Once Ezra gets on the ship, that's when the Star Destroyer starts really taking off and going into space.
No, it was still going slow. I mean, anytime we've seen Star Destroyers in atmosphere, they move really slow. They move really slow.
You're not wrong.
This is not a new thing.
You're completely correct, but I just felt like there was a point after Ezra got on there, whether it be 2 minutes or 3 minutes, or then it was just in space where Ahsoka's ship needed to go full speed to catch up with it.
Even in space, I mean, we've seen those scenes where there's it's like trying to turn the Titanic on. They don't move. They're not as nimble as they look.
Yeah.
So
Again, just a minor thing, but overall with Sabine using the Force, I thought it was done well throughout the season. She's not some super powerful Jedi, and I loved when Sabine, Ahsoka, and Ezra were marching through the tower or whatever. Ahsoka and Ezra are clearly blocking shots, and Sabine's getting shot in her armor. And when she's actually blocking shots, it usually just goes straight to the ground. So she's not trained in a way to do that, because that's a real Jedi skill. Using a lightsaber, Mandalorians can do that, but blocking lightsaber shots, that's Force stuff. So
and
I
redirecting them to the right location. Yeah.
So I like how there was
make it better.
Yeah. So that was something I noticed and appreciated.
There was a whole thing. I don't know. It wasn't in any movie show, but it was in books somewhere where they talked about how it was that part of the Jedi training, there's a specific sect where it's just learning how to redirect. I think even one of the Force is literally made to redirect blaster fire.
I just got to that part in the Darth Plagueis book where he has a
Yeah.
whole battalion of droids and stuff, and he's just training Palpatine because this is a huge. They do time jump, in the middle of the book and
You gonna
stuff.
finish that
So yeah,
fucking
that
book?
might be that
It's-
book you're talking about. Even though
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Sith.
There's
Four
one of the
weeks in a
forums.
row,
Yeah,
he
it might have been that
keeps
one because I did
mentioning-
read that. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of good stuff with Sabine.
Yeah, I love Sabine, not just in this episode, but in this series. I know there's some people who have issues with her and stuff. I really liked her. I do think the whole going from barely being able to grab a lightsaber hilt to literally 5 minutes later being able to push Ezra up in that Star Destroyer, it was a bit, it kind of not the smoothest transition.
Judge
But
me by my size, do you? Remember, the size doesn't matter.
I understand, but I mean, adrenaline, what, it does great things to us. So I get it. I thought she was great in this episode. I love that it's a smaller scene, but when Ezra is building his lightsaber, you do see Sabine in the corner, kind of, I don't know, what was it, kind of jealousy, or what was that look she was giving her? Just
No,
kind
she
of
was just
sadness.
reflecting on her relationship with Ahsoka, because Yang is like, from my experience, it's a very complex and hard relationship. And you see Sabine kind of reflecting on it. It was a very good natural segue into Ezra asking about it and then addressing it with Ahsoka and Sabine. That was one of those few, like, I would say, kind of emotional and deep character moments that was actually done well, because a lot of the other ones, like with Ezra and Hera reuniting, wasn't very impactful and everything. But this scene with Ahsoka, Sabine talking out about what happened, that stuff was impactful and was very good.
Well, and she's basically seeing
I-
Kanan's lightsaber as well, which is just metaphorically there for it. One thing though, I wish Sabine's theme played more in this show. It played a lot at the first 2 episodes, and I didn't really hear it much throughout the rest of the season. But
There was
no, I
a
thought
lot
she was
of
great
like
this episode.
Force-inspired themes in this one.
Sure.
I think that was the point. But yeah, again, it's me. To sum it up, I was okay with Sabine too, and I saw the little dichotomy did. Ezra sacrificed himself for the galaxy, and this time she sacrificed herself for Ezra. So I mean, I understand the point that he wanted to get home, and that was she knew he wanted to get home.
And Ahsoka, reinstates that to her at the end, like you completed your mission, you got Ezra home.
Right.
Home. Thrawn's there, but
that's all she wanted to do.
The Force.
Hitler is back.
Force push.
Hey, you got your friend back home.
Hitler's back,
Force
and we're
push
stuck
thing.
on the island with no technology. But hey, at least she
Hey,
saved
they
that
got the
one
little
guy.
turtles. They know what's up.
The Force push thing, getting Ezra on the Star Destroyer, didn't bother me because, like I was talking about, what Ezra doing it. To me, Force push is like the most basic Force ability that kids learn. The Padawans are learning this at like 6 years old. So it's like I don't see. And the issue wasn't that she didn't understand. She had confidence. Once she had the confidence to do it, and once she was able to pull a lightsaber, now she has the confidence. A Force push she can do. That's not that.
I agree with
That's why
that.
Ezra doing Force push. That's why Ezra doing Force push. To me was like, really? That's all you do in that whole battle scene is Force push. It's like you can do more than that. So that didn't bother me. I thought that was okay. And thematically, everything that happened with her trying to get Ezra back, I was okay with. Her kind of making peace with Ahsoka, and her place, and now setting up to where where next time we see Sabine, when she gets back to the galaxy, she's gonna probably be a pretty damn good Jedi, because that's gonna be happening. They got nothing to do on this planet except talk with turtles and train.
No. There's a lot to do now, but that we'll get to that.
We have Baylan and Shin. I know, but guess what? That's the trial by fire. She gets to learn while they're fighting.
By the way, one of your washers or dryers just ended. Just want to let one of you know. I heard
that's
a little
mine.
jingle.
Yeah.
I recognize
my wife has the dryer going off. I didn't even hear it. You heard it? Wow. Okay.
I heard it. I was like, I know that.
I didn't.
I know that
Yeah,
so well.
right
That's so
outside
great.
my door over here.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I was good with Sabine's arc with that. I was kind of annoyed with it earlier at the beginning of the season, but it kind of
It concluded pretty well, I would say, especially when it comes to what's actually going on when she uses the Force, and that's fighting with Ezra. I think that was the perfect place to allow her to use the Force.
All right. You guys want to?
I'm good. I think you guys want to move on to someone who also starts with an S, like Shin.
Yeah,
The
let's
greatest.
talk about Shin
my
and Baylan.
girl.
I guess there's not really.
She shows up for what? One scene? One scene only?
Her
A
Baylan don't have any
transition
words.
scene, yeah.
Yeah.
that was the
and,
biggest disappointment for me. It was
very
Shin,
big.
the whole thing.
A very big disappointment. She just shows up, lights her lightsaber on, and is going to be the leader of the bandits. But I don't care.
She's
She's gonna lose. I mean, come on, like what?
I don't care if she lose, but like even her losing, like this was like clearly okay. If we're going for season 2, she's going to use the bandits to either fight Baylan or fight Ahsoka and Sabine or fight all of them. But
yeah, but to what end? To
that's
conquer this
saying.
dust
Like,
ball of a planet?
Yeah,
I mean, there's like
that's the end goal here.
Interesting part of the entire series are these bandits that no one cares about at all. You could have told me they were not in the series, and I'd have been like, oh yeah, you're right. I don't remember any bandits. But she teams up with them to be the leader of them, and it's like, what the fuck are you gonna do here now? Like it's like,
well, I think again, it's a means to an end. It's her army, you know.
Yeah,
but
still,
that doesn't bother me. For what reason? You need this whole army just to take out Ahsoka and Sabine? Is that your goal? Is that it? Is that what's going on?
You know that's not going to work.
Well, yeah, no, of course not.
Could you imagine next season just get annihilated by Shin?
Because I was okay with Baylan telling her to follow her path if it was anything except this path, because this path does not make fucking sense. Okay,
should she have gone with Thrawn? Because that's what I thought they were going to go for. She just goes with Thrawn, and then she goes to Dathomir, blah blah blah.
Right, at least gone with Thrawn, or had a turnabout face, do what Sabine, mirror it, right? What Sabine did, what she thought she was leaving with Ezra, but she came back with Ahsoka. Have her show up with Baylan behind him, not realize she's there, and saying, "No, you know what? This is my path with you. This is what I want to do." That, and then even that, that would have wrapped it up pretty nice, I think, with all the arguments we had about him letting her go. If she showed up, it's like, no, this is my path. I want to.
Well, Lunga, it's like in Lord of the Rings when Frodo's in a terrible situation after Sam had left because of Gollum and all that, and then Sam comes back in full force and destroys. Was it Shelob? I think during that scene, he's like, "I'm not leaving you."
Yeah, Shelob, so daughter of Ungoliant.
I don't know about you, but the vibe I got from Shin was like there was a sense of disappointment and just kind of like her last resort when she showed up to the bandits or whatever. She's like, "Okay, guys, I'm here. Like, I have no other choice."
Bottom.
But it's weird because she does.
But how was the last resort? She had tons of time to get to the ship.
So that's why her
it's stupid.
just through the acting I got from the character, that's how I felt she was acting. But it doesn't make sense to me because it's like if she showed up back to Thrawn's ship, so I'm gonna say no.
I mean, he could have, but like to what end? I mean,
Thrawn has no reason to reject her. Thrawn is
Exactly.
committed, or Shin would be committed to his cause. So
exactly.
And if Sabine, Ezra, and Ahsoka can ride those horses or whatever with the wolves to find Thrawn, then so can Shin. Like she had her own horsey too. So it was just a peculiar decision that they made with Shin.
Yeah. What bothers me the most about it is that it's like it almost seems like, okay, well, we need someone to be the primary antagonist for them because Baylan's gonna be one if they recast Rey or whatever the case is. But they need, someone who's gonna be dogging their heels, right? And that's Shin. And it's like, okay, so you did all this stuff with this character, made it very ubiquitous. We don't know what the fuck is going on. Just set her up as to be the early primary antagonist for them in the next season.
No longer, they're setting her up to be the Mara Jade. Didn't you hear the theory?
Oh, no. I don't read that shit.
She's gonna be Abeloth.
No.
Listen, I saw. She's got blonde hair today. As you guys have seen, enough nonsense on Twitter already. I'm not going into those theories, man.
That's why we're not doing this week on Star Wars Twitter, because this is a bad week.
In retrospective, Shin really didn't need to be in the show. She didn't add much. She had some cool fight scenes with Sabine. There was some great moments between her and Baylan, and maybe they're going to do more with the character going forward. But in the show itself, she didn't add much.
She is the least interesting aspect of the show. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, the second least. The least was Hera.
Well, no, she was one of the most intriguing at the beginning, and then that thread just went.
Well, she was intriguing because she's tied with Baylan, let's be real.
It's a Fugazi. It's nothing. It's just
Can I get my thoughts on Shin? I can't believe I'm saying this, but somehow I would have preferred a out of pocket redemption arc for her, because at the very least we would have gotten something with her.
I don't know.
My theory, what if the twist is she's gathering these bandits not to go attack Sabine and Ahsoka and all that, because what's the point of doing that? She shouldn't care, but to go find Baylan.
I mean, sure. I partly hope so, I guess, but
It's
I
better
feel
than
like
what we
the
got,
way-
I guess.
She's
But
pissed at him, and now she wants to.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what I'm saying. She's like, you
She's
asshole.
like, you abandoned me. Now I got
You
these bunch
abandoned
of
me.
losers. They don't even speak
what did she-
English.
Does she
That's
even know that
still
Ahsoka and
unfulfilling.
Sabine are still on the planet?
The-
Like maybe she sees their ship flying in the distance and can assume, but
Yeah,
she
there's a
wouldn't
lot
know.
of ways that they can go about the story with it, but like none of it is all right. Let's be completely honest here. She takes the bandits, attacks Ahsoka and Sabine. What's going to happen? Shin is either going to die or all the bandits are going to die. She might be redeemed. She goes to Baylan with these bandits. Shin is going to die, and all the bandits are probably going to die. There's not anything interesting with her going with these bandits. I kid you not. There's nothing in season 2 that makes me go, I can't wait to see what happens with Shin now.
We kind of touched on it, and you kind of just touched on it now, that they kind of gave a hint of perhaps she's going to be redeemed and become another student of Ahsoka. And that could be something that could happen. And then all three of them are going to face Baylan and whatever he's,
Imagine the women comments if that happens.
Dude, can I say the word of where he was standing on? The Mortis gods? Can we say that? Are we too early?
Do you guys want to get into that? Do you guys want to get into
I do want to
Baylan
say
more?
one more quick thing just about Shin and the Marauders before we talk about the Mortis gods. I think right now what they left off with Shin isn't that interesting, but they could take the show in a bunch of directions. I mean, maybe these Marauders, right? They have a ship and they can go. They're in a whole new galaxy, right? They're not necessarily just stuck on this planet. So maybe there can be other factions or stuff that's drawn in that makes her story arc more interesting. So they could do stuff, but they haven't given much of a hint towards that.
I think that's the biggest issue we all kind of have wrapping these things up with this season finale is there was so many loose threads and they did not get tied up. Season 2 is definitely going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah. And the problem I have with cliffhangers is not.
They did say Deadline did say that it's not confirmed.
That's because the actor strikes are going on.
Because it's not confirmed. Because Disney never confirms things unless the only things they confirms are the things they're definitely not doing. If they confirm something, we know it's not happening. So when they don't confirm something, that's good.
Right, so the Mortis gods, thoughts?
I will start off saying that I loved it. I loved how they revealed it and everything. There's so much kind of symbolism going on with this because he's standing on the finger of the father who is pointing directly towards this flickering light. So you know that these statues were built in some kind of honor or memoriam for the Mortis gods in reference to them. So this power he's looking for is in reference to these Mortis gods. And these statues are pointing him towards that way. So this is clearly calling to him. There is a little bit of a problem with it. It's cool that this is what it is in the statue and everything. And I think there was some symbolism of the planet Peridia because the father is there, the son statue is there, but the daughter is not. And I think that's because this planet doesn't have any of the light side with it.
Well, no, it looked to me, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like it was there, but it was broken.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Like, the head was off or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it was. But I think it's a symbolism, though. I don't think they didn't build it because of her. I'm saying that it probably was built, but it was destroyed because this planet is the dark side. It's between dark and middle ground. But one thing I don't like about this is, like I was saying earlier, adds a little bit of context to what this power is. We still have no idea what it is, what his plans are, or what this power. It's still just kind of. Well, now you have to tune. It's the same question we've asked all season long. What is his power? What is his power? And you know what question we're asking at the end of the season? What is his power? What is his power? What is it? What is he going for? The Mortis gods, it adds a layer to it, but it doesn't. It's still not one of those satisfying resolutions. And unfortunately, now knowing that Ray Stevenson has passed, and the big thing with this is if they don't follow it up. I said it last week. If they don't give us an answer for what this is, it's horrible. Because
I know
we need to know.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to not follow up just because the actor died.
But if they don't, they'll be held to pay Lunga. I gotta know. I gotta know.
I mean, Lunga,
biggest
solo
of everything they've done
story,
wrong.
Man.
Of everything they did wrong, that would be the biggest mistake I mean, even to me, that would be even bigger than how they fucked up Luke. Is if they just said, "Oh, this actor died. Okay, we're just not gonna do nothing with it." That would You sat here and did not give me a lot of answers. Left me with this huge cliffhanger, which again, for me, him standing by with the Mortis God statues, that's enough for me. I don't need it tied up. It's like, ooh, this is what they're going into. that is good for me. I'm good with that. That gives me the suspense and the excitement going into the next season, as long as they follow up with it. Okay. So that works for me. Ending it with him standing there, with having him nothing else in the entire episode except that part, tells me that's an important plot point for next season. It's not just something they threw in there just for member berries. So I refuse to believe that it's just a thread they're going to just leave hanging there. I refuse to believe that. Now, if they make a dumb mistake and just say, well, the actor died, so we're not going to do anything. But I doubt that's going to. So I think that was great. I enjoyed that. I had no problem with that whatsoever. The more and more I see it, people are talking about it in the chat. I've seen it all over. This is one of the things I've seen all over Twitter. And it's really starting to make me think it could be Aboleth. Because this planet could be where they put her when they banished her. And that's why you got the Dark Sister magic that you have going on there, which is a kind of a bastardization of the Force, and it's this evil magic kind of stuff. So it's starting to make sense that it could be Aboleth. And I could see Filoni, if he did the whole Mortis God, I could see him going into Aboleth later. So, and maybe that's why statues are destroyed. That's why they're crumbling, but this is where they, imprison her.
You guys did notice the beacon off in the distance.
Oh, yeah.
That was the power. That was the power that was called for.
So I did find it funny how, for dramatic purposes, Baylan had to walk up on the hand, stare out, and now he's just gonna have to walk back around and down. It's one of those things that it's a dramatic.
The statue was the marker, right?
Yeah,
the statue's pointing to where you got to go, and you have to be at that vantage to see it.
I mean, you could have seen it on the father's shoulder.
Oh, it's just like a dagger in Rise of Skywalker.
Just a funny thing. But I think I'm starting to notice a trend here, and I think it's the reason why so many people felt disappointed. It's not so much what they did, and this might just be semantics, but it doesn't feel like a cliffhanger. It just feels more like stuff's open-ended. Like with Thrawn, they could do some cool stuff with the Dathomir and the Night Sisters. With Shin, they could do some cool stuff with the Marauders. Ahsoka and Sabine could do cool stuff. There could be some cool stuff with the Mortis gods, but there's just nothing super concrete. This is what's going to happen next. What's going to happen? So again, and I have the same feelings with Baylan and the Mortis gods. It could be really cool if they do stuff with Abeloth, or if they go down a different route, or it could be really stupid. I just I have that feeling towards every single storyline. And
Anakin being the new father, that would be really stupid.
That is so stupid.
So
anyway, so stupid.
That's just I think a big feeling that I'm starting to have with this finale. It's yeah, you could do some cool stuff. We'll have to wait and see. And there was nothing super satisfying, just other than potential speculation.
Well, that's the biggest problem with lacking a conclusion is you can have open threads. It's fine to have cliffhangers.
Yeah.
It's fine to have that. I think The Force Awakens did it perfect with Luke Skywalker was the cliffhanger, but we did get resolution with the battle on Starkiller Base. We did get resolution with Rey and Finn. I will see you again and all that. And then they go to Luke.
What was the storyline? The storyline was two things. For Morgan, it was getting Thrawn back to the galaxy. For Thrawn getting back to the galaxy. And for Sabine, it was saving Ezra. They did those two things. Those were the two main plot points. I know we like to think they threw so many things at us that we want a resolution of all these other things. But the story was about Thrawn getting back to the galaxy and Ezra getting home. Those were the two things, and they accomplished those two things.
No, those were the plots. Those were the plot points for the entire series.
Yeah.
The story for someone like Baylan is this power that he's been talking about. And like I said earlier, we asked that question when he first came in and was talking about it, this power calling to me. And we're still asking that same question now, with just a little bit more context. That is where it does get a little frustrating of you cannot have the premise for 2 seasons just be, what is his power? What is his power? What is his power? It gets old after a while.
Well, hold on. Now you're jumping ahead and saying the entire season 2 is gonna be what is his power? You don't know that, so you can't jump to that.
Do you think in the first episode they're gonna have Baylan show? You know what? I'm saying this, and you can probably cut to 2 years from now where it's just my voice talking about Baylan showing up at the planet in the first scene and figuring out the Mortis God and all that stuff. I just hope that they do give a satisfying conclusion to this, because the way they have built it up over the season and the way they ended it in this episode, it has to have some really big payoff to it.
Maybe it's because of this. This was the argument I had with ex-friend, I guess again on Twitter, was they're like, it wasn't suspenseful because they've been teasing this since Rebels. We knew it had to do with the Mortis Gods. And I think people have that problem when they accurately predict where it's going. Okay, because everyone's been saying since the beginning, this is probably involving Mortis Gods, it's going to be involving Mortis Gods, right? And when it happens, and you're like, that's the cliffhanger. Oh, we knew that. No, we didn't. You just accurately predicted it. The theory came through, but that didn't mean you knew it. Okay, so the cliffhanger still is. You're like, well, where's the story going? Well, that's it. That was the cliffhanger. That's what the thread was. What was his power? It involves the Mortis Gods. That's the cliffhanger. That's what's supposed to make you go, ooh, yeah, and go into the next season. So that's why that thread doesn't bother me. And I don't understand why that reveal isn't important enough.
It should be noted, though, that I give a percentage. 75% of people watching this episode had no clue who those statues were. We know, but most people don't. And this goes back to the discussion we had 8 weeks ago. How are a lot of the decisions made in the show gonna go to the casual viewers? They know jack shit about the Mortis Gods. It wasn't even mentioned in this show. The word Mortis was never even mentioned in the show.
Or
But
God.
again, we know. Sure. So
Yeah, but we established this was made for Star Wars fans. That's what it was made for.
We can have that
Yeah,
discussion more next week
that's
when we
that is
reflect
another
on the
topic.
series as a whole. So yeah, I mean, again, just with Baylan, it's like could go. And someone had a really good comment though. If Dumbledore can be recasted in Harry Potter, Baylan can. Like, there's just no
recasting would be okay.
And by the way, the second Dumbledore just passed away recently.
I know.
So it's not disrespectful to recast the character. I'm sorry.
No,
it's not,
no,
it's not the same thing
It's
with
disrespectful to deep fake them without their consent because they're no longer
Yeah.
with us, which is
Yeah,
what movies are
don't
starting to
take
try to
it,
do now.
please.
You can.
I mean,
You can
come on,
find-
guys.
there's so many-
It's one or the other.
And
Yeah.
Baylan doesn't have a distinct look. Like, of course, when he
There's
gets
plenty of
recast,
White guy with a beard
exactly, white guy
Yeah.
with some really nice hair and a really nice beard. He's got some nice facial hair. So
and a good jawline. He has a very
exactly.
strong jawline.
So
Mhm.
he should be relatively easy to recast.
He looks
I
like
will say-
the most interesting
I
man
mean,
in the
you can
world.
get
The
Russell Crowe.
Dos Equis commercial.
Yeah, you could get Russell Crowe to do it.
I mean, get him
will
in
say
shape a
this.
little bit, and boom.
Someone
there
did
is
tell
one
me that,
thing.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said go ahead first, motherfucker.
All right. I'm trying to be polite, goddammit. Anyway, there's one thing we kind of jumped over, which I think kind of ties into this whole thing at the end. Anyway, is what's the cargo? That's another thread. Like, what is it? Okay, and I think
That's a good
they
point.
kind of when going back to Dathomir, I'm really thinking why it's like, okay, why is it important to these three mothers and Thrawn? Okay, what it could be just dead stormtroopers is not it, right? And why Dathomir is important because that's where the Night Sisters left that planet to go to, and Dathomir has its powers and its stuff that goes on there. Okay, I think these are sisters and they're bodies of sisters, and I think they're bringing them back there to resurrect them. And Thrawn's army is going to consist of these mages. Basically, he's going to have his own kind of Jedi and Sith that aren't Jedi and Sith. They're Night Sisters, and that's going to be his secret weapon that he has. So I think that's why Dathomir is so important. And for the mothers is important is because they're pretty much almost extinct at this point, aren't they? There's like hardly any of them left.
Yeah.
So I think this is some kind of resurrection purpose or something. Someone made an interesting note how Lucas they could be even not retconning the sequels, but kind of wedging Lucas's vision for the sequels in here with the whole Darth Maul and Talon thing, where it's Maul and Asajj Ventress instead that they bring back somehow with this. I think that'd be silly, but I could see that.
Well, I mean, they're
reason why people would
basically-
think that.
It's not a big retcon. Like 30 years exist between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Like, I mean, some of the books explain this as like a 30-year piece or whatever. They can retcon that shit and say another, not a war, but another conflict arose in this time. And I don't think that I have no problem with that. It's still all going to lead into the First Order and the Resistance and all that. And then they can do some interesting stuff with depending on how the conflict with Thrawn resolves, that can lead into certain things with the First Order. So like maybe the Empire really did make a comeback, and then they had to go into hiding again and become the First Order.
Oh, yeah.
Now that I said that, it kind of sounded stupid.
Or it could just be too. I mean, like what the First Order's doing, because they went to Exegol and they were pretty much hiding out there, that they are completely separated from all this that's going on. That they're not, they're monitoring the galaxy, but Palpatine has his own deal going on and what he's doing over there and this stuff. And I guess that maybe if Palpatine knows what's going on, Thrawn's coming back to him is only a good thing. That doesn't hurt his plans. If anything, it keeps the New Republic off balance until he can make his return. So
maybe the First Order was able to take over the galaxy so easy because the Republic was partially destroyed by Thrawn's fleet. That could be interesting.
So that's what I thought they were going to kind of go for.
Yeah, but wasn't the excuse in the books and other stuff is that they completely demilitarized?
Okay.
Yes.
That was the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I know the books. I know. Don't count the books. Yeah.
I'm not saying no. I'm saying they can retcon.
It's their own motherfucking canon.
But they are it's not a complete retcon. They did establish that in the show. Didn't they say in the third episode that there was a demilitarization effort or something? And we see the pacificity. If that's a word.
It was that in the Mandalorian season 3 with that forget that guy's name, the scientist. Didn't they basically go over that a bit as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that's so stupid. I
don't know, man. I know a lot of people that
a functioning government with trillions of people and being like, who should protect us? Who? Nobody.
Okay, but
that's happened in history where countries have demilitarized and then they pay the price because of it.
Exactly.
People try and work with the ex-empire and they're like, oh, well, we can let you redeem yourself. It doesn't work that way.
You saw the Republic fuck up and do it because they didn't want to army, and then Sifo Dyas ordered a clone one, and then it turned on it. It gets old after a while.
But I think it makes sense given the context of what happened in the Star Wars universe. The Empire rose because they allowed
They're
the creation
we
of
had
an
1,000
army.
years of peace until we made an army, and then everything went to shit.
Yeah, and
God,
it happens all the time. As Lunga said, it happens all the time in history when there's an overcorrection and a fear of being perceived as the previous regime, and then things go wrong, and it's happened.
Well, it's a pendulum swing,
politics. Exactly. It's like I don't want to risk being associated with what came before. So I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction, and that's not what's best.
And the Empire was extremely militarized. They overproduced. They produced so much military equipment and so much everything with military. I mean, their whole budget was military. So, and then let's not forget how much they spent on 2 Death Stars. That must have been ridiculous.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Classic.
God damn it, fucking George Lucas. So with the Baylan and the Mortis gods, some people are talking about him, well, not him, but Anakin being on this, planet as the Force goes watching, and everyone has always said Anakin needs to replace the father. I would say though, looking at the 3 characters, or looking at 2 characters that we know people try to associate with the Mortis gods. People associate Anakin as the father, and they associate Ahsoka as the daughter. I think a possible route the show or storyline is going with Baylan is going to flip that on its head for people. First of all, Anakin is nothing like the father. The father is calm, normal, not cringe, and not a psychopath. Anakin is all of these things. And Anakin, no, he's a psychopath. He's a psychopath.
Hold on. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though we see him as, prequel Anakin, that's who we see, right? It's the Anakin who died under Death Star. Okay, that's who the father is, who had been through all that and came back again. That's who he is. He's the Anakin that we saw for 2 minutes who died under Death Star. Okay, and the Force Ghost Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi. That's who the father is.
That him and the father are even remotely close, even when he dies. You know who I think is like the father? The guy who was standing on the motherfucker's finger. All right, Baylan looks like him. He has the calmness of him. It would make a lot more sense to me to have Ahsoka be the figurative daughter, Baylan be the father, and then Anakin be the son. Because don't forget, Anakin did team up with the son when he was a good guy too. He was a Jedi, and he saw what was going to happen. And Anakin is susceptible to the dark side in a lot of ways. Baylan doesn't seem, I don't know. I know he's a dark side Jedi and everything, but he doesn't seem like I'm going to kill everybody and their mother because I'm evil kind of person, So where do you guys think this is going with Baylan and the Mortis gods?
I I don't mind if Baylan's after something or if he wants to release Abeloth or whatever. But if I passionately hate this notion that like Anakin, Ahsoka, or Baylan in some way need to replace the figures of the Mortis gods. For one, Anakin's a Force ghost. That's not what they
Right.
do. The whole point of a Force ghost is that these people are at peace. And when they do show up, it's always only to guide the people they're talking to or just look off in the distance. Those are the only two reasons a Force ghost should ever show up. So Anakin becoming this god from the grave, I couldn't think of a more bigger betrayal of George Lucas, to be honest.
That's a prequel of our fever dream.
And
that's what that is.
Hey, I haven't said my thoughts on that yet. Why not leave me alone?
So
Yeah, we don't want to hear your thoughts.
when
Prequel.
people
Yeah, I
are
don't blame
saying,
you,
like,
actually.
people like saying, "Oh, Ahsoka is now the daughter." Yeah, she's alive. I just don't like it. These are people. These aren't gods. Like the Mortis thing was interesting. Sure, you can do some cool stuff with Abeloth, but we don't need to raise these characters to become these super powerful beings. I just don't like that direction.
Anakin's the chosen one, so he can do all. He's
And
been
he did his job. God damn it! Let him sleep. Anyway, but
he did his job.
But you're right,
Palpatine came
Coleman.
back.
You're absolutely right, and that's why the Abeloth thing is even more intriguing to me, because Baylan has hinted that he kind of said is that it has to all be destroyed and start over again, which is what Abeloth.
Well, not even start over, but just to end a cycle. It just ends it all. Is he trying to end all these gods somehow?
Abeloth would destroy everything, and it would have to restart anew. Everything would have to restart anew, the way she would.
My biggest problem with it is, one, I find it cringe, actually, believe it or not. Two, Baylan, let's be real, Baylan is a random character who came out of nowhere. If he becomes the Mortis god, that would, I don't know, unless it's the season 2 builds up to it the whole way, it would just feel so unearned, and I wouldn't care for it at all. Ahsoka and Anakin being the daughter, that's cringe. I'm sorry. That's stupid. Yeah. I don't like that at all.
I don't think it's going that way.
It's not it's not needed is my point. It's not needed, right? Anakin brought balance. He's not at peace. He can visit his son, or so he should have visited his son at some point. And he can help Ahsoka. I think that's a good story for Anakin. I don't think we need much more for that.
Do you guys want to talk about the Anakin Force Ghost? Move on from the Baylan
Yes.
thing?
This is when I will use the Star Wars only. It was 100%, and I had to argue with some idiot on Twitter named Papa Memes about this.
There was barely an argument. You argued with all the other people in my mentions. My notifications. I said one thing, and all the flood of people came, like the Great Flood, right? And they just started going after you, and I do apologize for that.
Holy shit! Actually, Palpatine just put in a video of Lunga going off on him.
Out! Yeah. I'm also guaranteed that every hater I have in our comments and in the chat are all your people.
I wouldn't put it past them. They're very passionate. All right. What can I say?
But listen, they could be any color, gender. But they're probably white. Anyway. But yeah, it was a member berry. I got an argument literally with someone on Twitter right before we started the show. They're like, no, he wasn't. He had to be there. It's showing he was watching over her. I go, you don't think that the entire World Between Worlds things was him watching over her? No, he was training her. He wasn't watching over her.
He wasn't a ghost then, Lunga. This is a World Between Worlds, not in the physical realm.
Well, he did. We had no indication he brought her into World Before Worlds. He knows about her fight with. The first thing he says to her is, "You lost." So he was watching the fight with Baylan. He was watching over her. Goddammit. We already knew that. This added literally nothing. And this is when I classify member berries. And this is why I yell Star Wars only when he calls everything a member berry. If it adds something to the story, it is not a member berry. If it doesn't, it's a member berry. Anakin showing up at the end added nothing to the story. It was just to make people like Palpa Memes smile.
And you know, bet your ass I did.
I disagree. Was it mostly member berries? Probably. But there's just something about, I guess, Anakin seeing Ahsoka become the master he never could and smiling about it. I don't know. It was something that felt a little satisfying to me.
There,
But
It's
he
still
doesn't need to show up for
satisfying. Does
that.
not add to the story, though.
He doesn't look. If you look at all the Force Ghost scenes in Star Wars, there's always a meaning to it. Even in A New Hope and like Empire Strikes Back, you constantly hear Obi-Wan's voice over Luke saying, "Run, Luke, run! Use your instincts, kill the Jawa," all that crap. If you listen to him, he guides you on this path. Qui-Gon Jinn shows up to Obi-Wan to say, like, "Hey, look, this is what you've been waiting for. You weren't ready to see me, but I'm here. Let's guide you on this path to become one with the Force." Anakin doesn't show up to give her any advice. If he had done like a little voiceover of like run,
But you know what it was? It was
like,
meant to parallel the Return of Jedi end scene. That's what it was meant to do.
The difference between those, though, is that at the end of that story, at the end of Return of the Jedi and the end of Rise
all
of
the threads have been tied up.
Yes. The story's over. The story's over.
Yeah.
We've won. Everyone go home, smoke their
Right.
blunts, and call it a night. Anakin shows up when she's literally stranded in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't say anything like, "Oh, hey, by the way, if you want to get out
But
of here."
her
There's the
journey
Mortis god
to be
over
who she was over. Her journey to get to where she was is over. She made it to where she needed to be.
Her
as a
character is
person.
over.
Her character arc is over. I mean, not that her involvement is over, but her character arc is over. So I understand thematically where that would fit in. So that does make sense. But this is my other problem, and this is when I was arguing with this guy also. Fuck my son. I don't need to help him. He doesn't need any help.
We don't know what he's been
the
up to.
first time you guys see me as a Force Ghost is going to be twice with Ahsoka, who is more important to me than my son, who saved me from the dark side. And I told you, you were right. You were right. That is not. I don't need to help him. He's going to kill, my grandson in about 20 years. I don't need to help him at all. That's not important. Ahsoka, that's who is important. Because why? This is when I agree with you, Star Wars only. Because Dave Filoni has a hard out for Ahsoka, so that's who's most important in Anakin's life is Ahsoka.
We don't know what Luke's been up to. We've seen him twice since the start of the Jedi.
He was in Mando. That was like, what, a year before this?
Did you want Anakin to show up in the Book of Boba Fett and just talk to Luke for half an episode?
No, I just don't want Anakin to show up for Ahsoka, but never once contact fucking any of his family members.
Exactly.
He doesn't show up for Leia. He doesn't show up for Kylo Ren. He doesn't show up for. I've seen the sequels.
Leia probably.
Leia's his daughter.
I'm not saying he should not ever show up for Ahsoka. Don't be the first time be with Ahsoka. That's my problem.
At the end of the season one.
Is there anything to say that he hasn't spoken to Luke?
He should have in the sequel trilogies. Can I talk on this? I want to say Lunga and only. I agree with you guys on that, right? He should have shown up in the sequel trilogy. All right. I will agree with you on that because that means more Anakin for me. But my biggest thing that I couldn't disagree more on is you can have emotional scenes that don't advance the plot or move the story. Saying that means, okay, was the Ewok celebration at the end of Return of the Jedi, does that move the story? No. Does the Resistance celebration move the story? No. Is it still a good scene?
It's the end of the movie.
Yes.
It's the end of the story. Doesn't need the
This
But we already saw him. No, here. The Resistance celebration.
We already saw him.
Did they do a Resistance celebration in the middle and then again at the end? We already saw him. We the part of that he was integral to her story happened, okay, in that episode. We did not need him again at the end.
It's like they force him into the series in a lot of ways. I get he's Ahsoka's master and everything. Doesn't mean he needs to. I'm fine with him always like looking after her and everything. I don't need to see him at the end of like what's supposed to be kind of a sad moment for everybody of like, holy shit, you guys are stranded on this.
Well, maybe that's a good thing he showed up. He's going to go help her. That's what I assumed. That season 2 is going to take off from there, and he's going to be helping her.
I probably would have been okay if it was just his voice at the end.
Yes,
that probably would have been better.
Something to guide her. Every Force Ghost cameo or Force Ghost appearance is something to help and guide these characters. This was not that at all. This was just to be like, oh, well, it's just showing that Anakin's still looking after Ahsoka. Yeah, I've fucking seen Star Wars. I know that they're looking after her, okay?
I saw it 3 episodes ago.
Yeah, like what does this do? It just shows up so all the prequel fans can be like, oh God, it's Hayden again. You guys aren't happy to see Anakin. You guys are happy to see Hayden because of the story behind him, and that's where the stuff gets annoying.
I'm sorry. I think Anakin looking over.
You got almost an entire episode with him.
Yeah, and it's
You
nice to
gotta
see him
watch the
again at the
entire
end
episode.
when the battle is over. Thrawn escaped. Now Anakin's going to show up. I took that immediately as okay. He's going to go talk to her. Should we have seen that conversation or heard it? Absolutely, I agree with that. I agree that the conclusion was too rushed. Okay, but having him there was important, and I really appreciated that scene.
At least he admits. He says, "I appreciate it." At least he admits it's just because he wanted to see Anakin. He admits he admits it's not like it was so important. If you cut it out, the whole thing would have been screwed. At least he's not doing that. At least he's just saying, "I want to see Anakin. I liked it. I was happy." At least he admits that.
This was just as important and as warranted as the ending of Return of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker with the ghost showing.
No, not even.
Anakin showed up as, or Luke showed up as a ghost twice in Rise of Skywalker. I mean, the difference there is Rey's development and her arc came to a close the second time he showed up to her. But I digress.
Well, we did get Anakin's voice in that shit movie. We did get his voice and mixed in with like 30 other people.
But when they show up at the end of these movies, it's because you won. Good job. The dark side's defeated. Palpatine's dead again on both occasions.
Like
because we're right.
She did her arc, and that's
well.
Okay,
that's where I have to disagree with you. Because like me and Goldman mentioned, her character arc did end. So that was wrapping up not just the whole story; it was wrapping up her character arc. So
yeah,
I do get that. I just don't think it was necessary.
Anyway,
necessary.
We're going in circles here.
It's better than the Baylan and Shin argument we had a couple weeks ago.
I guess you brought it up this briefly, and I wonder if it's another topic of discussion. It's that on paper this should feel like a pretty depressing ending, where Sabine and Ahsoka are stranded here, but it ends with a rather uplifting tone because with the character arcs completed or whatnot. Did you guys find that to be unsatisfying, or was that part of some of the frustrations you guys may have had?
I took it more as Ahsoka has learned from Anakin's lesson, which again was kind of messy, but her lesson was that this is the path, and so she literally says it. Doesn't she say something like, "We're where we need to be"? This is the path we're going on. So I think that makes sense with her arc. Now, I do think, we needed a pretty depressing scene of Hera being like, "Oh shit, Thrawn is back. Well, better go tell the Senate," But I think that made sense for Ahsoka.
Yeah, it would have been a little salty and or savory and sweet with that if you had that little kind of juxtaposition between the two. If we had that
little contrast going
something
on.
Like I said, seeing the fleet or Thrawn showing up with the fleet, that's a little. You don't need all that crap. Just. Somehow Thrawn has returned. Something like that. Just throw that out there. That I think would have been. But yeah, as far as tying up, and this is what I said earlier, hinting at that it was a character-driven story. So as far as that goes, with Sabine, Ahsoka, especially, I think they did it well. We did get kind of a conclusion of those arcs. There's going to be more, obviously later with her training and other stuff going on. But we got a conclusion to what their character arcs were in this story, and they ended that off well. Ahsoka got the peace she was looking for, not being that young girl that was always taught to fight for everything, and that's all you have to do. Also, I think there was and the big thing I think was important about Anakin in general is that you're realizing that she's choosing to remember and acknowledge the Anakin she knew, not what he became. And that's important because she realizes that everything that is good in her and what she'd learned came from him. Even though he became Darth Vader, there was good stuff. And the Anakin she knew until she found out way later that he became Darth Vader. Because up until that moment, he was still a hero to her. He was still everything. So it's like that old excuse, like, well, he was always good to me. Kind of deal, right?
I just ran into the fucking doorknob.
This motherfucker's an asshole. You don't know this guy. He's always been nice to me. It's like that.
And that's the only reason Sabine, we're friends with Lunga is because he's always been nice to us.
Exactly. Everybody else is right. I'm just been fooling you guys. But yeah, and then Sabine's ended well too because she finally came to grips with that she is capable of doing the things that Ahsoka's told her she's capable of doing, and they kind of released that specter of her, using it for the wrong reasons and kind of avenge Mandalore or whatever the case is with her. So I think they ended those arcs well, and I was happy that Ezra's. I don't think it was an end, but it was more of a 360. What's 360 twice? Do the math. 720.
I think I
Yeah,
thought
nice
it was like
math.
a 180. I don't know. I think now that we've kind of given our full debriefing of this episode, let's kind of give our final rating, not for the series, but at least for this episode, of where this places on the entire series so far. We have 8 episodes. What you would give this out of a 10? Because we talked about this for the past hour and 30 minutes, and it seems like kind of a lot of mixed opinions between all of us. So to start off, I will say I would give this last episode a 7 out of 10. I think it was better than the first half of Ahsoka, not including episode 4. Episode 4 was maybe the best episode of the series, if not one of. But this was kind of like a middle grade episode. It's right in the middle. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just kind of good. It's not mid like last week's, but a lot of writing decisions that I wasn't a fan of. So I give it a 7 out of 10. Lunga, give us your debriefing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it could be fortunately or unfortunately, because what I said about certain episodes, I said I can't judge these other episodes fully until I see where the series ends. And now they got me in a position saying, well, it's hard to judge this episode until I see what happens in the next season. So that's so I'm in the same spot, unfortunately. And it's because, slap me around for believing this, but I kind of have faith that they're doing the right thing. And they are going to give us stories and answers for the stuff as it goes along. Only because we know Filoni does like to drag things out, right? He will drag things out, but he does eventually get to the conclusion. He drags it out.
He's been dragging this shit out since Rebels.
Well, to be fair, hold on. Rebels, I think, didn't Rebels end sooner than he wanted it to? Okay, and so he didn't get to tell that story, and now he is. So you gotta look at it this way: those years in between, just consider this picking up right where Rebels left off. So don't look at real time how long it took, because he couldn't tell those stories in all those years.
He chose to end Rebels. I thought he was the one who was like, "No, we're gonna end it on season 4."
As the Rebels expert, I don't even know, but ended perfectly. Anyway.
He obviously had more ideas for this, because this was not something, because he had there was a lot of threads and he had ideas for it. So I think, but at any rate, I would say I'm right around where you are. I'm probably at a 7 with the episode, mostly, and a lot of that hinges on my optimism for what's going to happen coming up in the next season, movie, whatever. I believe there's going to be a season. Even though it's not confirmed, there's going to be a motherfucking season 2. Let's not pretend here.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Goldman, what would you give the rating?
I don't want to give it a 7, and I don't, not to subtweet you guys. I just feel like 7's such a safe answer. Like, it was good, but it was really flawed. I don't know, because I'm with Lunga. It really depends on what happens next. I may have to go with a 6, because even though I enjoyed the episode, I just found a lot of the conclusions for the time being to be unsatisfying. I liked the arc, and the ending isn't really reflective of the entire series, so that's something we'll discuss next week. But this episode itself, probably a 6.
Falcon, you're up.
You guys have brought up really good points. That's kind of swayed somewhat my opinion on the episode. Overall, really, really love this episode. I'm planning on probably rewatching the whole series tomorrow since I'm off work. I think the biggest problem, and you three have all brought up the point, this number might change based on season 2, and so I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I enjoyed this episode a lot. It's not without its flaws. I think as a finale, it is minorly underwhelming just because of those loose threads. I'm sitting around a 7.5 out of 10 for this. I've only seen it once. I'm going to rewatch it again, and that number might change. I enjoyed it probably, I think, more than you guys did, but I definitely see its open flaws with it.
All right, so it sounds like we're all around the 7 mark. So, I mean, it passes, but we all have I'm not going to say nitpicks, but very big points of like, okay, we didn't like this part. We didn't like this character decision and everything. Before we close out the show tonight, we're going to go through two more things. A couple of super chats from Zach Briggs. He says, "Why didn't Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka just hack and slash through the horde of zombified stormtroopers? Seems they'd be easier to defeat since they move much slower." I think you were saying that earlier.
A fun action sequence.
Plot convenience. They needed to be scary. They needed to say, "What the fuck are these things? We don't know what the hell we're dealing with here." And I think that's setting up bigger things are going to be dealing bigger hordes of this shit in the next season, and they're going to, whenever they get back, oh, we saw this shit, holy shit, look how many there are now. I think that's what they're kind of setting up. That's why
I thought they were
supposed to seem. It was supposed to seem dangerous and threatening.
Well, I really like the Death Trooper one. You can kind of see its face and everything. That was really cool. I mean, they kind of got a little scared from that. You see Sabine pretty scared from it. But I think,
and they're obviously incredibly strong.
Yes, they can handle a lot of hits, which is why they should have picked up on that and just said, "Okay, put your blasters down. These are just pointless." Pure
strength. They're just incredibly strong. Yeah.
Speaking of brutes, shout out to my boy Lord Baratheon. He says, "I really want to know what is going on with
King of the Andals, first of his name.
The leader of the Roynar and the First Men, something like that." God, I love Game of Thrones. But yeah, I am in the same boat. I really want to know what is going on with the Chiss ascendancy, the Grist, and the way the show is going. We're not going to get anything in it. Why?
We're not going to get it. Read the books.
Yeah,
read the books. That's where you're going to get it at.
So much for absolutely nothing. It's just God.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, I think that's where my thing kind of comes in. Again, I'm not comparing Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones up until the last couple seasons was spectacularly done, and I think it was just because the acting is so great and stuff. But if you think about that kind of storytelling, and I was a fan of the books before the series ever came out and everything too, they dragged storylines out over seasons and seasons. You did not get conclusions to things at the end of each season. And just when you think you did, something happened, you're like, what the fuck? And then now we gotta wait till next season to see what the hell happens. And there was some sort. They had the whole damn thing with Beric Dondarrion, dragging out, being this undead guy for a while, and then they did that a lot, and I really enjoyed that kind of storytelling, and I think that's why this stuff doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, but then they didn't explain Azor Ahai, the Night King, what the long.
Well, that's because of what they fucked up at the end with Dave.
Yeah, but that is my point of like Dave Filoni kind of has a tendency to drag things out a little bit, and you can drag it out to a point where you kind of lose the plot and you just kind of resolve things, but not in the way
they didn't lose the plot. What happened is they ran out of book material and they didn't like fantasy to begin with, and so they just started making things up. Well, we're just gonna do this. Let's just wrap this up. We're just gonna do this. Forget about that. That doesn't matter.
Star Wars movie. God damn, that would have been a horrible.
We dodged a bullet with that one.
Yeah, thank God.
Oh, we need Ryan Johnson back.
Oh, here we go.
We'll talk about
so we dodged a bullet, and you want to bring back the fucking cannonball? Okay.
He dodged a bullet to jump in front of another bullet.
You fucking bet.
Oh man! All right. So before we close the show, some housekeeping notes. This is a schedule for the show coming up next week, October 11th. We're going to do a full series review of the Ahsoka show, all 8 episodes. We're going to go over the whole season and give our thoughts on everything. October 18th, we haven't done a Mandalorian season 3 review because we were gone during that time, and same with Andor. So on the 18th of October and the 25th of October this month, we're going to be going over Mando season 3 and Andor. So make sure you set the dates, tune in, and come join us on Chatooine for those interesting topics. But I think that's pretty much all we have for today's show. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next Wednesday night. We'll talk about the Ahsoka series. Lunga, take us out.
All right, we're done, guys. Goodbye.
Cool. Wait.
Are we
It's
still
still
live?
live.
Still says we're still live.
Should we cuss?
I hit end stream.
Still live. Don't say any slurs.
I'm going to do it again. Play
That could be
outro
fun,
and end
but-
stream, which is what I clicked. And we'll click it again.